WeatherTech is made right here in America, and it's perfect for an American-made summer. Because we cannonball into summer, hike all over it, slide down it, camp in it. It's one ice cream-covered, sandy, soaking wet mess of a season, which is why WeatherTech floor liners and seat protectors are a must. We are road-tripping, beach-going, lake-jumping Americans, and that's just how we summer. WeatherTech, made in America for an American-made summer. Visit WeatherTech.com today.
How's it going, friends? Welcome to Scott Fox After 9. Before I get too far into the content of today's episode, I gotta walk you through my day yesterday. Yesterday, I did the morning show like I do every day, and in case you missed it last week, I have shifted back to recording the podcast from my home studio. And to be honest with you, I really needed a break. I needed a separation from nice, safe, friendly FM morning radio before the podcast where I talk about news and current events. So it gives me a nice little mental break. I did not know when I sat down to record yesterday's podcast that a Twitter war was happening between myself and Tim Hortons, of all people. But here we are. I came upstairs after the pod yesterday, and lo and behold, my phone was blowing up. So let me walk you through what happened here, because that's going to segue perfectly into one of the many audio clips I've got for you on this episode of Scott Fox After 9. Today, you're going to hear from the Pope. You're going to hear from the Prime Minister. You're going to hear from various critics from the Conservative Party, not the least of which is Michelle Rempel Garner. If you're a longtime listener, you know I'm a big fan of Michelle and the work that she's doing on immigration. All that and more coming up on this episode. But yesterday, the Globe and Mail, they sent out a tweet, and it was a link to one of their articles because they're using social media to grow their profile. Tim Hortons, to dial back use of temporary foreign worker program, aims to hire 10,000 locally. Okay, I mean, when I read that headline, I think, yeah, right. They're still trying to hire temporary foreign workers. They're not rolling it back. So I replied to that. I said, it was only a few weeks ago. Tim's swore they couldn't find any workers to work in their stores. Now they plan to hire 10,000 people? Something doesn't add up. And I'm also noting here, Dunkin' has announced they're about to enter the Canadian market. And once Dunkin' gets to Canada, I think it's going to be a game changer. Well, I was not expecting a reply to that from Tim Hortons, but I got one. Let me read it to you. Hi, Scott. We think one of the biggest misperceptions about Tim Hortons is how the TFW program has been used. About 3.6% of team members were hired through the TFW program. These are positions in communities where restaurant owners faced documented labor shortages and went through the full government approval process before hiring. The new campaign will help Canadian restaurant owners hire 10,000 new local team members, supporting the natural turnover and growth of Tim Hortons restaurants, including 80 new restaurants opening this year across Canada. So Tim Hortons sent that to me, and as I record now, 543 replies to that from Tim Hortons. 543. And not one of them is nice. Not one of them is kind. They are all commenting about how they're going to boycott Tim Hortons, how that 3.6% number seems outrageous, because that is not the perception when you walk into a Tim Hortons store right now. It just isn't. Not for a lot of Canadians. So Tim Hortons here is trying to repair their reputation. They want a clean slate. They want to get back to being Canada's coffee and donuts chain. Now, do they want to do that because they want to improve their business and they've just had an epiphany that maybe they should hire local people? Or is it because Dunkin' is about to enter the market? We can debate that. If you want to weigh in, slide into my DMs. Listener DM Friday is coming up in just a few days. Now let's get to the audio from this episode. Chrystia Freeland is a former deputy Prime Minister of Canada, former finance minister. She at one point wanted to be the Prime Minister. She ran for the Liberal leadership. Well, now I don't even know how she got this job, although I can kind of speculate. Chrystia Freeland is a special envoy advising the Ukrainian government, but she still lives in Toronto. Yesterday, she was doing a speech, and there was a heckler there. Before I play this, I'm going to tell you that it's hard to listen to. Even if you despise Chrystia Freeland, which I know many of you do, this is still hard to listen to.
Thousands murdered because of you. How many children have you orphaned? You monster! You Zionist Nazi dog! And I see you up there, Jesse. You're disgusting. You're disgusting. You're a monster. What do you have to say for yourself, you animal? You disgusting animal. You're a fucking Nazi, Chrystia Freeland. You're the butcher of Gaza. Those souls will haunt you for the rest of your life. You animal. And you go around with a book deal? You making money off of genocide? You disgusting dog! You disgusting animal! Who do you think you are? Robbing people of their money, of taxpayer money, to fund Nazis! You're disgusting! They should haunt you for the rest of your life! You disgusting animal! Zionist dog!
I told you, right? That was really hard to listen to. Here's my message in that. I think there's a lot of people that hate Chrystia Freeland. And frankly, I understand. After the Freedom Convoy, after the way she patronized and taunted Canadians, after she was a co-signer on the managed decline of Canada in a lot of different ways. She was right there with Trudeau. I get that there's a lot of people who hate that woman. I do. And I understand there's many people in politics that we don't like. Maybe there's a past premier that you just hate. Maybe there's a former prime minister that you loathe. Listen, a place like that is not somewhere to do something like that. In fact, no place is appropriate to do something like that person just did. We can absolutely talk out our political differences, and we should. I'm a huge advocate for talking out our differences politically. But handling it the way that person did was deplorable. I actually felt bad for Chrystia Freeland, and frankly, I didn't think I had that in me. I really didn't. Chrystia Freeland is, we should have some conversations about what went on when Chrystia Freeland was in charge. But handling it that way is not appropriate. And if you've ever had any thought to go up to somebody on the street that you dislike and verbally and physically, really, to try and intimidate someone like that person tried to do yesterday to Chrystia Freeland, I think that is completely the wrong way to conduct yourself. And I think you should stop and think about what's making you that angry and try and figure out a different way to get some satisfaction. Because I know there's people who want to say things to Chrystia Freeland. Maybe even not very nice things. The way this person did that was wildly inappropriate. We're going to differ. We're going to have disagreements. We're not always going to get along. But how you speak to someone makes a huge difference. And I thought that was awful. There's probably going to be some people that think I shouldn't have given it the light of day. I shouldn't have posted it on the pod today. I respect that opinion too. You know what? I really wrestled with whether or not I was going to play that, but I did see this as an opportunity to try and talk about how we solve our political differences. So, with that in mind, now let's jump into the rest of the content. A few minutes ago, I was talking about Tim Hortons, the temporary foreign worker program. Well, yesterday, the Conservative Party's immigration critic, Michelle Rempel Garner, was in front of the House of Commons, and she was doing a media availability. She talked about the fact that Tim Hortons is still trying to use temporary foreign workers. Listen to this.
Tim Hortons is trying to, move away from its reliance on temporary foreign workers by launching a campaign to hire more local workers. I'm wondering if you think it was time and if other restaurants should do the same.
So you're talking about temporary foreign workers. Yes, I'm sorry. Have to take a kick at humor once in a while. I read the articles and the statements that chain made, and they're still asking for temporary foreign workers, right? The Conservative Party's position has been twofold. First of all, we know that there's a youth jobs crisis. We know that there's a lot of Canadians who are out of work. What we've been pushing the government for is better labour mobility strategies, skills training to match and make it easy to facilitate Canadians to move to where the jobs are, right? So we need that type of work, number one. And number two, that's why we're calling for the abolition of the temporary foreign worker program and replace it with a standalone program for seasonal agricultural labor that's legitimately hard to fill. But I will say this, like, I think it's, oftentimes in opposition, people, you think, well, what do you do? What's, is it worth? I think that and I want to thank all of my colleagues in the Conservative caucus who've been united on this issue, asking for better labor mobility strategies, pushing against the Liberals' reckless immigration policies, because I think we did move the needle on this issue, and we're going to continue to push the government on it.
Okay, so Michelle is a little skeptical about Tim Hortons' intentions here. They say they're hiring 10,000 local people. That should mean students are going to be able to get jobs at Tim Hortons again, and it seems like they've been boxed out of that market for quite a while, while Tim Hortons tried to get temporary foreign workers. You don't have to search very far. In fact, I've shared links from the CBC about Tim Hortons applying to use temporary foreign workers. It's something this company seems to like to do. Now, I read that reply that Tim Hortons sent to me. They say only 3.6% of their team members are there through the temporary foreign worker program. Okay, how many is that in numbers, first off? That I'd like to know. Because anytime you get approval to use a temporary foreign worker, you have to have told the government that you couldn't find a single Canadian that wanted that job. So either Tim Hortons is lying that they can't find people willing to do the jobs, or the government is incompetent or intentionally complacent in just rubber stamping these applications. I don't believe there's any corner of Canada where there's not one Canadian who would like a job. I just find that too hard to believe. Now, is Tim Hortons lying? Not necessarily. It's entirely possible. I know in looking through the comments on that tweet, that exchange that I had with Tim Hortons yesterday, I know that there's a lot of people who think they only hire Indian people. Maybe they do, maybe they don't. I have no numbers either way, and nor do I care. I really don't care. I just happen to think that we should be hiring people locally before we start going to other countries and trying to recruit unskilled workers to come here and take jobs that could belong to Canadians. Tim Hortons says 3.6% are temporary foreign workers. Maybe it is 3.6% that specifically went through that program, but we also know there were foreign students. There's all kinds of people that are in this country that probably shouldn't be, and they're allowed to work. I think it's kind of obvious to most people what's going on, and I'm not going to draw any further inferences here. That's not my place. I'm here to give you what you're not getting from the mainstream media. Let your brain take you wherever it is your brain wants to take you.
But it's not just about energy security. It's not just about these bills, which they need to repeal. It's also about equity. I believe that a strong Canada is when we are united in equity. And the reality is it's not all okay right now. The federal Liberals have treated my province for a decade like an afterthought. I've had many, famous quotes about this in the House of Commons over the years, and I've wrote documents warning that this would happen if the Liberals didn't take action to show some hope for that equitable Canada. So what I'm calling on the Prime Minister to do is he has no right to wave his finger. There's one person who can unite the country right now, and one job it is, and it's Mark Carney's, but he can't just wag his finger. He has to project real action. Tell Albertans when a shovel is going to go in the ground for pipelines. To tell Albertans when he's going to repeal these bills that are preventing investment in upstream development for our resources sector. When is he going to repeal the gun grab that has irritated so many Albertans?
Michelle is a Calgary area member of parliament. She's an Albertan. She has every right to weigh in on the situation that Canada finds itself in right now. And I'll agree again, a third time, she's absolutely right that it's Mark Carney's number one job right now to unite this country. That is the first and foremost job of the Prime Minister. Unite the country. There are two provinces that could be holding separation referendums. Two of them where it's a realistic possibility right now. Where's the unity? And where is the equity? See, I sympathize greatly with the Albertans. I come to you every day from Southern Ontario, but the people in Alberta have been screwed for years. Michelle has talked about this in the past, the alienation of the West. It's not right how Alberta got treated. Now they're finally at a point where they're asking, is it worth it for us to stay anymore? And rather than try and assure the people of Alberta, yes, you absolutely should stay. We're stronger together. When we're a united Canada with Alberta's resources being used, we are unstoppable. Rather than sending that message, Mark Carney is being condescending. He's trying to shame anybody who dares to even ask for the referendum, because it's a referendum about a referendum. The referendum in October is only going to decide if they're going to have a referendum. Again, like I said yesterday, 2 votes need to be won before Alberta can even begin the process of separating from Canada. This isn't something imminent that's going to be done by Christmas, not by any means. Alberta has been mistreated. One more from Michelle, and then I think I'm going to get to the Prime Minister.
The other thing that I want to, as an Alberta MP, make a comment on is the Prime Minister's comments this morning. I just want to say this. The Prime Minister and the Liberals, they need some humility at this moment. The reality is that there's a lot of frustration in Alberta after 10 years of Liberal policy that essentially shut down the energy sector's growth and stymied a lot of projects. I want to be very clear, it was the Prime Minister who started an international banking alliance that shut down Alberta oil and gas. He has no right to wag his finger. That makes it worse, and he shouldn't be doing what he did this morning. Also, arguably, he screwed up on Brexit. He came out as part of Project Fear, and it backfired. I would strongly caution him from doing that again, and the tone that he gave this morning was not responsible in that regard. What we need to do right now is that the Liberals need to project hope, not fear.
That is a tall order from the Liberal Party. Mark Carney seems to thrive on crises. He does not like Donald Trump at all. Well, maybe he does like Donald Trump. He loves the crisis, though. He can go to Canadians and do whatever he wants and say, well, it's Donald Trump's fault. You know, the thought of Alberta separating, this gives him a villain. Again, it's another crisis. Everybody's got to rally behind the Prime Minister. Michelle is absolutely right. He's got to change his tone. You're going to hear him in a few minutes talk about Brexit, and you're going to hear him with some very condescending remarks about Alberta. Is that the way we should be dealing with somebody who's thinking about leaving? Calling them names and shaming them? I don't think so. I don't think that's a smart strategy at all. Let's go to the Prime Minister. Here is him talking yesterday.
I will make the following observation, though, about the question, and it's this is an observation from experience. In these separation issues, it is often advanced that vote for this and it's a free option. Vote for this and we will strengthen our hand in a future negotiation. That is a very dangerous bluff. That is a very dangerous bluff.
Whoa, he said it twice. That is a very dangerous bluff. There you go, Alberta. He's taunting you. He thinks you're bluffing. He thinks you're playing games here. Ooh, we'll vote to have a referendum and then they'll have to give us whatever we want. I don't think it's going to go down that way. In fact, I think most Albertans' mind is already made up. I think there's people that are in favor of separation. I can see it in the amount of people and how well organized they were to collect as many signatures as they did. Do you know how many doors you've got to knock on to get 300,000 signatures? That's insane. There is a movement in Alberta that wants to separate. There are people, though, that want to stay in Canada. And I feel like half of them are locked in. They're not going anywhere. They are proud Canadians and nothing will ever change their mind. But, you know, there's another percentage in there, in between firm Canadian and let's separate. They'd be swing voters. Depending on what happens, I think they could be swayed. And right now they're leaning towards stay in Canada. But I don't think their mind is firmly made up. That's why the Prime Minister has some work to do here. Saying they're bluffing, taunting them like that? Are you kidding me? That is exactly the wrong way to deal with this. The Prime Minister should be on the ground in Alberta right now, shaking hands, taking pictures, and talking about what's going to get built and when shovels are going to be in the ground. He's got to tell people the next 10 years are going to be very different from the previous 10 years. That's what he's got to be telling Alberta, and he's not doing that. He's being condescending.
Barry with CBC. Can I ask you, when you met with Danielle Smith, Premier Smith in Calgary, did you try to persuade her not to put a question of separation to Alberta voters in October? And I guess if I could ask as a second part, now that there is this question in place, how much uncertainty does it create for investors who want to put money into a pipeline or any other kind of project in Alberta?
Look, it's, the Premier has proposed this, the question and other questions with it. As I said earlier, Tom, we will look at, we will discharge our responsibilities, look at consistency of the question about a question, if I can put it that way, on separation, our consistency of that with the Clarity Act. So it is what it is. It's there. We have to discharge our responsibilities. As I said, look, the Premier doesn't always take my advice. But I can I finish my please? Look, is it helpful to ask these fundamental questions? No, it's not helpful. Of course, it's not. Is it the democratic will of Albertans? Did they vote for this in the last provincial election? No, they didn't. It wasn't on the ballot paper.
Hold on a good goddamn minute. Hold the phones here. Too much has been said that I've got to stop this guy and interject. I'm going to rewind just a little bit. I'm going to go point by point. Here again, the Prime Minister speaking yesterday.
The Clarity Act. So it is what it is. It's there. We have to discharge our responsibilities.
First off, this isn't discharging your responsibility. This is uniting our country, and you're the damn Prime Minister. You're not discharging a responsibility. This is your job, your number one and most important job. Unite the country. That's not discharging a responsibility.
As I said, look, the Premier doesn't always take my advice. But I can I finish my please? Look, is it helpful to ask these fundamental questions? No, it's not helpful. Of course, it's not.
What do you mean it's not helpful to ask the fundamental question? Let me reframe this Alberta argument one more time. 300,000 people signed a petition saying that they want to separate from Canada. Then 400,000 people signed a different petition saying we want to stay in Canada. Why is it unhelpful to ask the question? And by the way, it wasn't the government that brought it up. There's been a movement growing in Alberta. Whether this government wants to admit it or not, it's their fault, mainly. There's been this sentiment brewing that people have had enough and they want to separate. Well, when you've got 300,000 that want to separate and 400,000 that want to stay, doesn't it seem like that's a fairly robust debate? Doesn't it seem like that's something we would talk out when 300,000 people want to leave? Prime Minister Carney here wants to shut it down. No, you're not leaving. That's it. End of story. You're not voting. Why? Are we a democracy or not? Let's keep in mind what Canada is. It is a collection of provinces and territories that are all their own entity. If Alberta wants to leave, Alberta can leave. You know, the federal government doesn't have to like it. It'll make them look terrible. They'll never in history, well, never in the future again get elected if they're the government where the whole country falls apart. They don't want this. But God, are they ever going about this the wrong way? What's wrong with letting people have their say in a democracy? Nothing could be more democratic than having a vote. And here's the way it is. We're going to have a vote.
We're almost halfway through the year, and a lot of people are running on empty without fully realizing it. Grow Therapy helps you find care that's covered by insurance before burnout becomes the baseline. Whether it's your first time in therapy or your 50th, Grow makes it easier to find a therapist who fits you, not the other way around. They connect you with thousands of independent licensed therapists across the U.S., offering both virtual and in-person sessions, nights and weekends. You can search by what matters, like insurance, specialty, identity, or availability, and get started in as little as 2 days. And if something comes up, you can cancel up to 24 hours in advance at no cost. There are no subscriptions, no long-term commitments. You just pay per session. Grow helps you find therapy on your time. Whatever challenges you're facing, Grow Therapy is here to help. Grow accepts over 100 insurance plans, including Medicaid in some states. Sessions average about $21 with insurance, and some pay as little as $0 depending on their plan. Visit growtherapy.com/booknow to get started. That's growtherapy.com/booknow. growtherapy.com/booknow. Availability and coverage vary by state and insurance plan.
The Prime Minister here is going to suggest people didn't vote for this. Listen to this part again.
Is it the democratic will of Albertans? Did they vote for this in the last provincial election? No, they didn't. It wasn't on the ballot paper. It wasn't in the mandates of or platforms of any of the governing party.
Oh my God! Now I'm losing it. Hey, listen, are we doing that now? If somebody is in government and they want to propose something that wasn't in their platform when they ran, it just can't happen? Because you know what? I don't remember reading in the last federal election or hearing any robust debate about this sovereign wealth fund. There was no campaigning on that in the last federal election. Doug Ford in the last Ontario election didn't campaign on, I'm going to change the freedom of information laws. Does that mean that shouldn't apply? Is it anti-democratic? Or do we elect a government with a vision and an agenda and give them a little leeway? How about going forward, since the Prime Minister brought this up, how about this? If a government wants to introduce something that wasn't in their platform, before it can become law, there must be a referendum on that so that people always get a say. In a democracy, that's how it works. But that's not how the Liberal Party works. They don't see it that way. They think they were elected, they've got 4 years to do whatever they want, and their only concern is getting reelected. So they can do whatever they want for 3 years, and then they'll suck up and give out a whole bunch of handouts in their final fourth year there, and then they try and come back to the voters and get reelected again. That's what's going on here. Man, this Prime Minister, I've given him so much runway. You guys probably know. I get complaints all the time from people. Why are you not harder on Mark Carney? I've always said, I'll be hard on him when he deserves it. He deserves it today. What he said yesterday, he is trying to stir up separatist sentiment in Alberta. I think he's doing this intentionally because he wants a crisis. He wants a wedge. He wants the whole country angry at Alberta or a faction from Alberta. It's nuts.
You look around the world. I travel around the world. I see, and the world is in pain. Most countries don't think that they're headed in the right direction. Canada, with all our imperfections, challenges, Canadians think we are headed in the right direction. And part of the reason why they think we're headed in the right direction, is because we're Canadian, because we know we'll come together and we'll work to find a better way. And I'm committed, my government's committed to continue to do so.
The Prime Minister is referring to a poll that came out that said Canadians are happy with the direction of the country. I don't know if he's reading that poll right. 47% was the number one response, and 47% feel the country is going in the right direction. I mean, that's such a hypothetical question. I don't even know how pollsters asked that with a straight face. I don't understand. In what sense are we going in the right direction? Right now, would you say that economically, Canada's going in the right direction? Would you say in the jobs area, things are going in the right direction? Would you say inflation's going in the right direction? The housing market is going in the right direction? We've got a lot of problems. Would you say crime and punishment is going in the right direction? There's a lot of issues here. The Prime Minister is going to look at one poll and say, well, there you go. Canadians love what we're doing. I don't think Canadians love everything that this Prime Minister is doing. Let me put it to you that way. I think the honeymoon is coming to an end, and Alberta, I don't know if Alberta's going to separate, but it might be what causes this Prime Minister to separate from the electorate. This could be a real issue for him. He has got to change his strategy. It's very simple. Alberta, we love you. We don't want you to leave. We're stronger together. We're sorry that Justin Trudeau ruined your province for 10 years, but now we're going to make it right. You're about to be prosperous. We're going to start building pipelines and taking out all of the anti-energy policies and green ideology so that Alberta can start cooking and the whole country can start cooking. That's the right answer. That's what creates national unity in Alberta. And for any province that wants to really start cooking, what do you got? What do you got that can contribute? BC, you seem to want some attention. What do you got? What can you contribute to the Canadian economy? We'll approve it. Ontario, you want to mine the Ring of Fire? Do it yesterday. Get going. We'll make sure you've got the permits. We'll make sure that there's no legislation in the way. Go ahead and do it. Atlantic Canada, what do you want to contribute to our union here? Go ahead and do it. The government will get out of the way. The problem is this government doesn't want to get out of the way, not unless they get what they want on green ideology.
Alberta simply or the federal government.
No, it does not expressly say that.
It says that it assumes sole liability. That agreement expressly says that to get out of the deal, Alberta simply or the federal government.
No, it does not expressly say that.
It says that it assumes sole liability. Alberta says that means they would have to pay $1.2 billion if they renege on carbon pricing. Is that not correct?
There are contracts for. I answered that question, if I may, already. There are contracts for differences which are struck.
Prime Minister, again, getting into a dust-up with a female reporter. He only seems to have those clashes with women. That was Marky Walsh from the Globe and Mail, if I'm not mistaken, possibly the CBC. I don't know. I don't watch these people. I don't know who it was, but people had told me, oh, you should watch this clip. It's really, really condescending towards the reporter. I'm glad I did. It wasn't as bad as people made it out to sound, but yeah, that did not sound good. Coming up in a second, I'm going to get to the U.S. ambassador. First off, Pope Leo speaking just the other day. It was some sort of a papal audience, but I don't know who was in the audience. The topic of AI came up. The Pope. And if you're someone who follows the religious teachings of the Pope, he thinks artificial intelligence needs to be disarmed.
Artificial intelligence needs to be disarmed. The word is strong, I know, but deliberately chosen because this moment needs words capable of attracting attention, awakening consciences, and indicating paths forward for humanity. The Church has long been working for nuclear disarmament, aware that every great technical power can affect people's lives, and so must be accompanied by adequate moral discernment and public control. Nuclear disarmament remains a service to peace and the dignity of the human family. In a similar sense, artificial intelligence now demands to be disarmed, freed from logics that turn it into an instrument of domination, exclusion, and death. Like nuclear energy, it must be at the service of all and of the common good. Decisions about technology must never be separated from conscience and responsibility. Let us not sleep as others do, admonished the Apostle Paul, but let us keep awake. Such vigilance is necessary today.
I don't know why we're just bending over and letting AI take our jobs. Can I say that? I don't necessarily agree or disagree with anything the Pope said there. But let's talk about AI for a second. One of the things that is very common right now is a fear of losing your job. How many people are worried that AI is going to replace them? I know it's not everybody, but there's a tangible amount of people that are greatly concerned that AI is going to take their job. Why are we supporting this? Why don't we tell the decision makers, shut it off? Hey, if you want to use it to fake an essay in university or to proofread a letter that you got to send, fine, no problem. Go ahead and use it. But generally speaking, using AI to replace people, why would we do that? There's nothing more put profit over people than that. Why are we behind this? Why are we just letting it happen? Why don't we say no? Why are we just sitting here waiting for AI to take our jobs? Let's be proactive about this. Last person I want to hear from on this episode of the pod, U.S. Ambassador to Canada, Pete Hoekstra. He sat down and did an interview with Radio-Canada. There's a few interesting parts from this. I want to play it. Give this a listen.
You've been also quite vocal about the alcohol ban by provinces that was put in place in retaliation to U.S. tariffs. If Canadian provinces were to put back the American alcohol on the shelves, would that, would that lead to a tariff relief from the United States?
No, I mean we think the alcohol ban is totally unfair. It's a clear indicator of how 11 provinces feel about trade with the United States. They're sending a very, very clear message about how doing business with the United States doesn't appeal to them. The Prime Minister has reinforced that message, okay? And so it creates some questions about, Does Canada really want to do business with the United States?
That's the question the Americans are asking right now. Do they even want to do business with us? That's what they're wondering about Canada. Does Canada want to deal with America? I mean, I got my hand up. I do. They're our closest trading partner. Geographically, the closest country to us. Of course, we've got to have a good, robust trading relationship with the Americans. There's no other way to do it. We have to. The Americans, they seem very take it or leave it right now. And I don't think they like the way we've been behaving in these negotiations, rallying up all this anti-American sentiment and banning their booze. Even if they put the booze back on the shelves, he just said that's not going to get the tariffs gone. They considered that an attack on them. Hey, they hit us with tariffs like they hit the rest of the world with tariffs. Yeah, for sure. We can be angry about that. But at least we had CUSMA, right? That protected the vast majority of products from tariffs. Well, we can extend CUSMA. We can make it better. But we don't want to deal with them. Here's more of the ambassador.
So here you've got folks who are doing everything they can to get the Canadian public to rally against America. It just doesn't make any sense.
But do you understand where that frustration is coming from?
Absolutely no.
In Canada, because
no.
You know, a lot of Canadians are saying, well, we didn't do anything wrong, and suddenly Donald Trump, put tariffs on us.
We put tariffs on everybody in the world. There are two countries that have retaliated against America. Okay?
China and Canada.
You said it, I didn't.
She did say it, and she's right. Canada and China, the only two countries to retaliate against the Americans for the tariffs. Every country got hit. 2 responded, China and Canada. Again, he sounds very take it or leave it, Canada. It sounds to me like the Americans' attitude right now. And obviously, I'm not in the negotiation room, but here's how it sounds. Like to do a deal with Canada, they're just not being reasonable right now. So let CUSMA expire. Let them pay crazy tariffs. We could have avoided all of this if we would have just sat down and got a deal. As Mark Carney promised us he was the guy to do.
There's some disappointment and maybe some frustration. I think we believe we could have moved further on the trade negotiations, which are due in 5 weeks. So I think there's just a little frustration and disappointment.
The Americans are frustrated with us just as much as we're frustrated with them. Do you remember Mark Carney? And I'm going to give, what is her name? It's Kate Harrison on CBC. She pointed this out yesterday, and I hadn't thought of it this way, so I want to give Kate full credit for this. She pointed it out, and it made me think of things a little bit differently. She said, the Prime Minister says, we have to not be nostalgic from the past. We have to take the world as it is. Well, as it is, we are not working well with the Americans. We could make life a lot better and more affordable for everybody if we would work better with the Americans. We're the ones not allowing that to happen. Take the world as it is. As it is, Canada is in a bad spot. We need to work out a deal with the Americans. What are we going to do about that? Friends, that's it for today. I appreciate your time. I hope you have an amazing Tuesday. I'll be back here with you tomorrow with another edition of Scott Fox After 9. Right now, Pat James and The Whole Truth. Hey now.
The bar's set with Top Shelf Country Cruise, and 2027 is taking it even further. You're not going to want to miss this. Top-tier country, top-tier experience. The bar's set at Exceptional. Country star Riley Green will be performing on board along with Chris Young, Lauren Elena, and Randy Hauser. Plus, catch Jackson Dean and Travis Denning. And for a limited time, you have the opportunity to stay in an exclusive Veranda Plus stateroom. Spend 7 unforgettable days aboard the luxurious Celebrity Summit. Departing from Tampa, stopping in Bimini, Fernie, Key West, and Cozumel. And when you're not exploring paradise, you're enjoying these extra perks. Embarkation day lunch, daily breakfast in blue, afternoon hors d'oeuvres, a beverage package, and a reserved seat for the nightly main shows. All included. Brought to you by Signature Cruise Experiences, the gold standard for charter cruises since 2001. You can live the country star life at sea, but only if you book it. Reserve your Veranda Plus stateroom now at TopShelfCountryCruise.com. That's TopShelfCountryCruise.com.